Hey Alottle family, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Cami Ewalt. Today I'm going to show you guys how to take a picture and kind of make it Polaroid-esque to be able to put pictures on a tumbler instead of just kind of slapping some random images wherever. I just thought this was a cute way to do it, and if you are interested in that kind of a tutorial, stick around and we'll get started. Alrighty, so first things first, we are going to bring the pictures in that I have saved onto my computer. I'm going to come up here to File, come down here to Merge, and I downloaded all of these today, so I'm going to click on the first one of 6, press OK, and it's going to bring it into my project. So I want the second one to open in the exact same project, so I'm going to come up here to File, Merge, select the second one, click OK. And I will do this for all the rest of them. Alrighty, and then I'm going to left click, drag over them all, and I'm going to scroll. Well, I guess I could scroll up, that's fine. I'm going to shrink them down and just move them off to the side for now. And if I did my math, I should have 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So then the next part I want to do is start creating the template for the Polaroid. So we're going to start by coming over here to the drawing tools, and I'm going to select the square. I'm going to come back to my media area, and I'm going to left click and drag. And it doesn't matter the size, we're going to change the dimensions here in a moment. So if I continued on and just tried to keep clicking, I'm going to continue to just draw squares. So let me back up here. So after you're done creating your square, you're going to come back up here to your select tool. That way you can click wherever and you're not continually making a square. Alrighty, so this is going to be the exterior part of my Polaroid. So an actual Polaroid, the outside dimensions are 3.483 by 4.233. So we're gonna, while this is selected, we're gonna come up here and we're gonna change the dimensions. So I just clicked on there, erased what was in there, and I'm going to put my own 3.483, and then I'm going to tab so it gets me over to the height section, and this is going to be the 4.233, and then I'm going to hit enter, and it just automatically makes that square the size it needs to be. So for the next square, you can either repeat the process we did before, or you can just push Alt, left click, and drag away, and it's going to make an exact duplicate. And then we can just come up here and change the dimensions again. This one is for the inner square, so where the picture is actually going to go. And this is 3.024. And then we're going to hit tab and 3.108 and hit enter. And it automatically makes that the size we need that to be. So see how that kind of just nestles right into there? That is the dimensions we're going to start working with, okay? So how do we get all of these into here? We're going to move this bigger square off to the side for now. And we're just going to start by using the inner square as kind of a template. So I'm going to Alt, left click, make a duplicate one, and then I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. Let me get this page set up out of the way. And I'm going to bring a picture down, and I'm going to nestle this top left corner right in the corner of that square. And then I'm going to shrink this down. And this one isn't the exact right dimension, so I'm going to just bring that outside right edge right to the edge of that square, and I'm just going to stretch it out ever so slightly so we have the proper dimension. So now that one is ready. And then I wanted to show you guys, like, what if we need to crop one. If you didn't care if it looked all the same, you could just like shrink this down and put it in the outer rectangle. But I want them all to look exactly the same and exactly like a Polaroid. So I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. I'm going to actually start with the top, right along that top edge. Let me zoom in here. So I'm going to start with this top right along that top edge, and then I'm going to bring the picture out because I know that I'm going to crop off quite a bit of the edges here. So and this is obviously personal preference wherever you think it would look good, but for now I'm just making sure that it's going to be right at that top, this top line of our template, and down at the bottom of that template. I hope this is making sense. If it doesn't make sense, you guys definitely leave a comment or a question in the comment section, and I will try to answer any questions that I have. So then I'm going to just I used my arrow keys to kind of scroll over and find a place where I think it'll crop off really well. I didn't want to like crop halfway through his thumb. I mean, this is going to be all right, I think, right in the middle of the forearm. We're catching just the outside of her shirt, so I think that will actually crop out pretty well. So then we're going to left click, drag over both of them, come over here to the modify panel, and we're going to crop it. And that crops it down to that square. Okay, so that one is ready to go. And when I cropped it, it took away that template. So I have to create another one, Alt, left click, and drag. And this one is actually going to be obviously too tall. Looks like it was a screenshot from a Facebook comment or something like that on somebody's page. So I know that I want to have it line up on both sides instead of the top and the bottom. Let me zoom in here. So I want both sides of this picture to line up on both sides of the template. So I'm just going to start kind of up here. I know we're going to cut off some of that sky and some of the bottom of this picture, but the bulk of what we want is right here. So I think that's a good placement there. Let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see. So we're going to wind up cropping off the top and the bottom here. We're going to left click, drag over both, come over here to the modify panel again, and crop. And once again, we have the proper size square. All right, so I'm going to do this to the rest of them, and we will be back in a moment. Alrighty, so now that we have those all sized the way that we want them, I'm going to turn this white so you guys can see line work white. So oops, let's bring this to the front. And let me zoom in here. So see how this is all going to kind of line up in that Polaroid, kind of Polaroid-esque as I'm calling it. We're going to have this outside. We are going to cut white vinyl, and then all of these pictures we are going to print on clear waterslide paper and then put on the white vinyl on the cup. So I'll show you guys how to do that in the next video. But how do we know how to, or what size to make all of these? Well, let me take a moment and I'm going to put all of these on their white Polaroid back, and then I'll come right back and I'll show you what to do next. Alrighty, so I've got them all set to Polaroid area, and I did the dimensions of an actual Polaroid just so the aspect ratio would be proper. So how do we know how big to make them to be able to put on the tumbler? Well, I looked up the dimension of what like a 30-ounce skinny wrap would be, because that's what size cup this is going on, is a 30-ounce skinny. So again, I'm going to come over here to the drawing tools, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Don't worry about the size as you're drawing it. Come back up here to the select tool, and this is already selected. The size of a 30-ounce skinny wrap is actually going to be a 10-inch. Remember to put the width in and then tab, and then a 9.4 inch, and then we're going to hit enter. This is what a 30-ounce skinny wrap would be. And I'm going to change this to black. I'm a very visual person, so this is kind of the way I operate. I'm sure not everybody needs this, but I do. All right, so obviously these at that size are not going to fit on this at this size. So we're just going to left click, because I want them all to be the same size. And I'm just going to shrink them down. And whoops, let's bring them to the front. And then from here, obviously it's kind of personal preference how you want them to kind of line out. So remember, this is a two-dimensional flat rectangle. Almost a square, but more rectangle. So I know that I'm going to want them kind of hanging off here a little bit because it's going to wrap around the back. So maybe I have that one there and this one, maybe just a little bit there. And as I'm stretching these out, I'm noticing that these are all, quite small in reference to how I want these pictures to look on this tumbler. So I'm going to left click, drag over all of them, and I don't want this black background selected, so I'm going to shift left click, and that's going to deselect that so that only the Polaroid pictures are now selected. And I'm going to take this corner and I'm going to size them up a bit, and then we're going to go through this rigmarole again. And if you really need the extra visuals, what you can do, actually let me do it with one that you can kind of see into the picture. I'll turn the transparency down, or transparency up on this so we can see where it hangs over, the white hangs over. So if we needed to know kind of how it would line up on both sides, we could take this and come over here to our knife tool, and then just starting at the edge of this black, hit shift, left click, and drag straight down. That's going to give you a straight cut. I'm going to let go of my left click first, and then the shift key second, and then come back up here to our select tool. So then these are now two separate pieces because we've altered them. So I want to group them together, and then I'll be able to move them over to this side. Let me group these together. I don't want the black selected, so I'm going to shift and click. That deselects that black back. Wow, that was a mouthful. and then I'm going to group those together. So see how they're kind of lined up exactly right here? And if I needed to figure out how this was going to line up there, I could go something like that. All right, I wanted to show you guys if you needed an even more in-depth visual. So I'm going to do the same thing I did down below. I'm going to take this knife tool and I'm going to hold down, whoops. I'm going to take this knife tool. I'm going to hold down Shift, left click, straight down, let go of the left click first. So it makes that cut, and then let go of the Shift key. Come up here to the select tool. We're going to group these outer two together, and then let me scroll up here. Coming in from the top, I'm going to left click and drag, and then deselect the black by Shift and left click, and that means these two pieces are the only thing selected. I'm going to group those. And so now, because I know these are exactly where they're supposed to be, I'm going to select this side and just click or use my left arrows and continually left arrow over until it gets to the other side of that background. So these are where they're going to meet up if this were going to be a tumbler wrap. So essentially what we just did was created a seamless pattern, if you guys ever wanted to make a seamless pattern tumbler wrap. Anyway, so now I know that those are going to be exactly both sides of that end. So now I'm just going to kind of nestle these other pictures in here and see what we have to work with. Obviously, we could fiddle with this all day long, but I think that looks pretty good. So that is what it's going to look like on the cup-ish. It's obviously going to change because we're going to put the white vinyl on by hand, so obviously it won't be exactly like this, but it just gives you a visual to know kind of how big you want your pictures. Anyway, I hope this wasn't too confusing. Alrighty, so when you get them all to whatever size you think you're going to want them to be, we are going to ungroup each one of them. So we're going to select all these pictures, and I'm going to do that by clicking one, hold down the Shift key, left click on the other pictures. Allows me to select just the pictures and drag them off. Okay, so this is what we are going to cut out of white vinyl. I would just kind of nestle them up here as close as you think you want them to be. And if you want to conserve vinyl, definitely nestle them as close as you can without getting in the way of cutting or whatnot. As it stands, I've got a almost 9 by 7. That's how big I'm going to cut my square of white permanent vinyl, attach it to my mat, and then I'm going to hit send. And it's going to bring up your cut lines automatically. And then I make sure that whatever substrate I'm using, be it vinyl or printable vinyl or whatever that you're using here, you pick that proper one from the drop down menu here. So I am using 651 Oracal permanent vinyl, and it defaults to a force of 7 and a speed of 3. If you've got a decent or a newer blade, that will be just fine. If you've got a really older blade that hasn't been replaced yet, you might need to up your force a little bit, or maybe just do 2 passes, but you might have to do some test cuts to find out what you need for that. And then you're just going to hit send, and it's going to send this to your Cameo cutting machine. Then I'm going to come back to the design portion. I'm going to left click, drag over all of these, pull them off to the side. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get these ready to print them on waterslide. If you've been around my channel for any length of time, you know that I like to mirror my water slides. So I'm going to select them all, right click, and flip horizontally. And I'll show you guys in the next video why this is important if you guys haven't seen me do this before. But for now, I'm just going to nestle these in. You're going to come up here to the page setup panel, click that. You're going to come down here. Our media size is not going to be this 12 by 12 mat like we cut on. It's actually going to be A4. That's what size our water slide paper is. So I cut A4 here, and that's going to give me the proper dimensions here. I'm going to come down here, and instead of show cut border, I'm going to click that off, but I want to show the print border. See, if I would have just left it like this and not clicked on that show print border, this picture would have cut off right there as it was printing, because that's our print line. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. See this line right here? It would have stopped printing that picture right there. So always try to remember to turn on that show print border. Oftentimes I'll save my water slide printing until I have enough that I can fill up a whole page if I have that luxury. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Or you can just grab extra florals or something else from Etsy or something like that and go ahead and print on here, and then just keep them in a file folder in wax paper, so that way you have optimal use of your water slide paper and you can go from there. Alrighty, so once this is set, we're going to come up here to File, Print, and everybody's printers are slightly different, so you might have to find your own settings on your own printer, but this one's for mine. I'm going to go to Print. I'm going to go into Print Preferences. And I want to make sure that under paper type, under the drop down menu, I always pick like other photo inkjet papers. You can click glossy inkjet papers, or if you have specific to your printer photo papers, you can, that might be an option for you. But for me, I found the best setting for my printer is on other photo inkjet papers. So I'm clicking that. Under print quality, whenever I print pictures or anything with a lot of detail that I want to capture, I make sure that I click best. And then I come up here to paper quality, and most of the time this will default to letter. So when you pull this up, it'll be already on letter, which is your normal printer paper, 8.5 by 11. But if we left it like that and we have something that extended outside of those dimensions, you're not going to capture everything that you want to print. So because we're printing water slide, you want to print A4, and once that is selected, we're going to hit OK, and then we would hit apply, and then put your water slide paper in your printer, and then hit print. So then after you print it and it is fully dry, you're going to seal your water slide page 3 to 4 times with a clear seal. I use Rust-Oleum clear spray paint, but use whatever you're comfortable with. And I let it dry completely in between each coat. I will link a video in the description of how I print and seal my water slides if you need some help there. But then I'm going to cut these out into individual squares right along the edge. I usually just use scissors for this because it's a perfect square. And then if you join me in next week's video, I will show you how to put it all together on the cup. So if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section. If you have any suggestions or recommendations or requests for videos in this design element on Silhouette, definitely put those down in the comment section as well. And I just want to thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope to see you next week for the rest of this cup, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.